Greetings, beautiful souls. Today is October 18, 2018. I am back on live again today, and I'm being pushed by Spirit to discuss things in greater details when it comes to that dream that I had this week to do with my divine counterparts. And what happened is I had some more conversations with two people that I know, and it's like it has taken me deeper into more wisdom in what I'm here to share. So it might be a very long segment today because Venus is in Scorpio, like I said before. And what's going on is that we are really, truly getting a rewrite from history, from millenniums, I should say, into what has occurred before on the planet when it comes to sex, when it comes to intimacy. As you know that I am on a twin soul path. My name is Sharon Andrea. Let me introduce myself. Welcome to my channel. And twin souls are here to retemplate so many things and raising the consciousness of the planet. And I'm also doing an audiobook called The Return of the Garden of Eden. And so from what you're about to hear from me today, it's going to be, I'm going to be discussing some of the things that I already have recorded in this book. And I'm also going to be reading from something that I've read before that I got off of the internet years ago that I already had transcribed into the book. And also I'm going to be playing a recording of a conversation, just a little bit of a conversation that I had with someone that I know that also had a similar experience to what I had in reference to the dream that I had. And from what has been shown to me by Spirit is that we're rewinding back and having to look at past lives that we've had with either our twins, or it could be with someone else that's showing up as far as their karmic partners. So you might be going through this right now because that's where Venus and Scorpio is taking us back into relationships and sexual intimacy as well, you know, besides money. But today specifically, I'm going to be discussing about sacred sexuality and intimacy and what is being rewritten. What is it that's playing out? What is it that we're reviewing and where it's taking us when it comes to these divine unions? Of course, most people that are talking about these unions are discussing it more of what we're doing as far as healing is concerned. And one of the things that I'm going to speak from my heart first before I start reading anything. One of the things that I know that I discovered for myself is that the true connection to God, the true connection to source is through intimacy. The highest level of attainment to this consciousness is through intimacy. But if we have blocks that are there from this lifetime and other lifetimes, you might not be able to feel yourself connecting in its pure state. And so the way that sex has been used on the planet had been for either money, or there have been incest, or there has been molestations. There has been, you know, several things that have happened that have created blocks, especially when it comes to females, things that have occurred within families that have not been discussed. It has happened throughout my lineage itself, you know, when it comes to sex and sexuality and giving birth to children. And if we're not able to heal the wounds that we carry within ourselves, especially, you know, females in that womb space, these blocks are created and we're not able to be in our full expression of ourselves. And the soul desires, craves to connect and to be in the expression of this intimacy and what it means. So anyway, I'm going to go deeper, like I said, than what I haven't done before from the last video that I put out there. I already did a segment back in January of 2017 on sacred sexuality. And this was when I had an encounter with my divine complement. And what happened was there was a merge that occurred between myself and him and my twin and their brothers. And what happened is it took me into a higher state of consciousness. And I'll never forget that day. I was in my room and I felt my soul just soar like high. And I started to speak in tongues. So feel free, if you go back into my segments and videos that I've done, to listen to it, because there's also sacred sexual tones that are in there. And what it does is that it helps and brings you more into, I would say, a merging. I mentioned the merging and the convergence of your soul. As you're coming into this union, what it means is what's integrating between the divine masculine and divine feminine, and what that union means, and that it is in a sacred space. Okay. So now I'm going to go into, before I start, because there's so much stuff that has been shown to me in terms of what's happening right now, because there's no coincidence. I was talking about the dream I had, and it had to do with the fact that I was engaging in oral sex with my divine complement, and I was in the hospital, as I had indicated in the dream. And what happened is that it brought me into a space, it had always brought me to a space with him, where it opens you up and you feel like there's something connecting in energy and force. And of course there's saliva involved, and water is like a conduit, the fluids of the body. But the thing is that not everyone is open to that as yet. No one is even not no one, I'm going to say no one, but most people are not even at a full understanding of what all these sexual acts, what they mean. The thing is though, not everyone is able to open up about it, you see, because so many things have happened where sex has been distorted. It has been used as far as pornography, and that has to do with the lower chakras. And this is about how we're able to connect back to one another. And it means that we're coming into the heart space with this as well. And so I went in deeper, and I did talk about how I looked up online what oral sex means. And not that I know what it means, but what does it mean from another perspective? What does it mean for us energetically? What does it mean for us universally? What does it mean when it comes to our expression, and where that comes into play, and all the other parts of how we express ourselves sexually? And so it says that it says it represents a life force. Okay, it's a life force. And so when you think about ourselves, how we were created, okay, we were created by the divine, and we were created by the divine to be in full expression. And you think about the female body, and it has to do with how we give birth, okay? And as the child is leaving out of the vagina, then of course it's so funny and ironic how with some of us, we want to go back to the vagina. We want to connect to the vagina. We want to connect to things energetically, sexually, okay? Because as you reach to a certain stage in your life in puberty, there's a desire that we have, and it has to do with how we want to come and merge with one another, okay? But now it's not where it's all in all of this energy of distortion. This has to do with how are we able to connect to ourselves and to who we're connected to, and also how can we connect to one another. Because I have always expressed before where I had an experience where I was taken out of my body, and I started to have full body orgasm. And I started to feel myself connecting to the all there is, that, with everyone. But then when I came back into my physical body, I also started to have experiences where I was feeling like I was in love with another female, and I wanted to merge with her. And I'm like, but I'm heterosexual. I'm attracted to males. But you see, with myself and who I am, I wanted to explore this within myself with understanding it, okay? Now, I didn't act it out. It wasn't a fantasy. This was an experience I was having that Spirit wanted me to have, because I have to talk about it. I have to talk about what it means for me, what it means for us, because it was shown to me that the entire planet is going to be in that space as we go through this process of this soul evolution. What the soul has always been. It has always been this way, because when you leave out of your body and go to the other side, you start to feel in love with everyone, and it's a desire to who you choose to merge with, and who you're with, and who you're connected to. So either way, I found myself feeling that desire, and I was like, wow. So anyway, somebody or anyone you may have, if you have within the past 24 to 48 hours, either have had a dream, or perhaps maybe you've had a premonition or something, and it's in relation to your sexuality and your desires. And what happened was, I found myself, this is the physical space now, not the dream. I found myself wanting to look at porno. and it had to do with female, a female. Greetings, my dear. And I found myself looking at something pornographic to do with a female on female, okay? And I realized that I had the desire to look at the vagina, and I'm like, why do I feel like I want to do that? Why? And I found myself feeling the arousal, engaging in all of that stuff. And so someone else that I spoke to, I'm not going to name them, also the same thing happened to this person. And she started to have these feelings and desire to have a, oh, it's 555 where I am right now. And she started to have a desire and a feeling to want to have a sexual encounter with her twins karmic. Okay. And so I told her, I said, well, what's happening is that we are reviewing, because remember I said in that dream that the dream I had, my divine complement, there was something going on with the baby mother, with the daughter, and also the karmic. Okay, and it had to do with things that had existed with the feminine energy. I call it the sort of like distorted type of energy where there's manipulation, the shadow side of the feminine, because we are reviewing the shadow side of the feminine during the course of this Venus in Scorpio as well, really taking us deeper, because it's so important to really evaluate, because we are going through a life review, not just this lifetime, but other lifetimes. And so you may be processing through some of this in your dream state with experiences that you've had in the past lives that's playing out either through your dream state or in the physical space where you are, energetically wise, where either your twin may be saying something, or the karmic might be saying something, because a lot of times we switch places where you have been if you're a female in the female body now, where you are the male in another lifetime and playing it out in another version with that person. Okay. And so basically what it has to do with is how we're looking at how we relate to each other sexually, intimately. Okay. And where it has taken us. And a lot of times when it comes to the sexual act, it is brought about with guilt and shame, and and sometimes with the females feeling dishonored. And so what I realize is that there must be something that I had to understand. Well, why did I feel like I wanted to look at the vagina? What does it mean, when we think about the vagina? And so when you think about the vagina, and if you feel the arousal, or if you feel this part of yourself being pulled with the vagina and how you view it, right? How you feel, because you came out of it. Everyone came out of the vagina somehow, okay? Whether it was naturally or C-section. And so there is something that relates to you and how you connect to your mother, how you connect to the person. And doesn't mean that if the person didn't give birth to you. So I'm discussing this in all intensive purposes to do with how we are relating to the vagina, and how we're relating to intimacy, and how we're relating to it now, and what is being rewritten now, what is templating differently now. Because when I had discussed in that other video is that I fell asleep, woke up, and I saw 1010. And so I said, well, there's something that craves with that, right? Something that comes with that, right? The desire to touch, to feel, to express, okay? And then there's usually in cases where there's an attachment to in some cases to guilt and shame surrounding it, how we feel about it. So I took some notes again, and I wrote down, we discover our true feelings regarding our sexual nature, and how we are being free to express who we are, because that's what it means. So the soul craves this intimacy. And I said, well, if I desire something, there's something that is connecting to, within me to do with what I see visually when it comes to the vagina. And also when it comes to how there's something that we desire to feel something with the vagina, and then the penetration of the phallus and what that means again, what is being created, what is coming together, correct? And so I'm going to play something, a part of the recording from yesterday when I call it my notes, because what happens for me is that as soon as I start speaking to, to someone that is having a similar experience, even if it's in a different way, I start to get downloads and more downloads. And so I was receiving a channel, sort of a channel download while I was driving. And it was in relation to what I was putting together and all the pieces to all of this and what it means for us when it comes to intimacy and returning. You come out and then you're returning back in, because the womb, the vagina, it's all a portal to something, and getting to that state of consciousness. So that's the reason. So one of the reasons why during this time frame, as we're healing through so many different levels of things, okay, we are really coming into a space of now, what does it mean for you in coming into this union space? And that means that when we're getting to that higher state of consciousness and connecting to the divine, that means that you're able to get to that place where, are you comfortable being naked in front of your divine partner? Are you comfortable being naked in front of your twin? Are you comfortable with your body? Are you comfortable with your vagina? Are you comfortable with your partner looking at your vagina? Are you comfortable? How comfortable are you with your clitoris and looking at it, feeling it? Everything that comes together when it comes to this expression and the intimacy and where it takes you, okay? And what does it mean for us when we're giving birth to a new energy here and what we're coming into creation? Because, religion has also played a role in what is to be spoken about and what's taboo. And, you couldn't talk, around the table with your family, your children when it comes to sex, even though that's what got us here in the first place and how distorted it has been. And, and being able to talk about the body part, and then instead of saying the correct name, oh no, don't say that. That's not the right word, religions that have played a role in the female body and what is to be covered and stuff. And still the feminine has two different expressions. You have the Lilith expression and the Eve, and it's still a part of her. And how we view and feel, when it comes to the word nakedness, and it's becoming naked is what really allows you to see things from a way of how we are being authentic, how we're being real, how we're being fully in that space of who we desire to be. And when someone says, no, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, you must, tame yourself, you must, know your role and your place. And, even in some cultures, it's like, oh no, sex is just for procreation and that's it. And it's nothing more than that. And also whether or not there was also courses of history where the females were used for sexual gratification or for prostitution. And what happens is, a lot of times if you talk to some females and males too, they don't even know how to relate to orgasm or feeling something, or there's no connection. And so the lower chakras are now being rewritten. So some of you might even be feeling like you're having a cycle more than often, or you might feel like you're having, like cramps or so forth, or you're having symptoms like, with like course of pregnancy. So all of this is a part of what's rewriting with your body, because all of this is also accompanied with changes with your body as well. So even if, say, if you're a certain age and you haven't, your cycle stopped for a while, that is a part of the process of this ascension, where you have no cycle at all, then it might come on again, it might come on heavy. There's also some cases of some females who've never had a child before, having issues with having a child. A lot of things are just shifting energetically in the womb space, okay? You're shifting with your thoughts. You're shifting with all the things that you have been taught from childhood. When you were a child, were you in your own freedom and expression of your body? Right? Where you were explained when it comes to sexuality and sex, also the cycles of your body and coming into puberty and all that. I didn't even know I was going to talk about this part but I guess Spirit wants me to discuss this, because you see, a lot of things occur during the course of your childhood, and also the curiosity, they're curious and you want to know, you feel, this is something natural. When you are at a certain age, you feel the attraction and the pull. Even when I think about when I had my first kiss, I was actually like, I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old. And I remember when I was sitting on the step and I remember that little boy and all we did was kiss, but I didn't look at it like some people think, oh, if we kiss, you're going to get pregnant. It wasn't even like that. It was just an innocence. And you see, this is what this is about, is how you're coming back into this innocence and the purity of love, the purity of sexuality, the purity of divine love, and the essence of it, okay? And where it's not labeled as bad or good, right or wrong, or if it's evil, or, this is something that it's going to hurt someone. You see what I'm saying? And this has to do with any wounds that you may have. When I say this is meaning the Venus in retrograde, because if you are still having issues with your own sexuality because you've been raped, because you've been molested, or if it's even by a family member. It was so sad, even just before I made this video, I'm not good with names. Some football player, my dad had sent it to me, got arrested because he was having sex with a 12-year-old girl and his wife caught him. And so now he's in jail and he lost his contract, because of that. And, we can look at it and judge and say, oh, that's awful and this and that. But guess what? There is something within him that he's carrying in his DNA that has to do with ancestral wounds. It's been in so many cultures. Even my own son has told me of things that has happened, on his wife's side of family with things and things like that. So, these are the things that we have to look at and observe and review to help us through all of the stuff we've carried that have been blocks to the true intimacy. It's like so many people that feel like as if God is not there for them, or they don't feel anything, or they don't even know what it is to come into their true creation. And that is because of their disconnect that they have had when it comes to God and their path. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that in there because it can go deeper and deeper when it comes to how we connect to ourselves, how we connect to our bodies, and what does it mean for us when it comes to these unions. So I'm going to play now the recording that I made having this conversation with my friend. And I was just getting this little revelation. It's about 5 minutes long. And then I'm going to go back into discussion when it comes to intimacy and what it means. Hope you can hear it.
There's something about when we look at the vagina and it opens a portal to, because it's used for giving birth or for enjoyment. You see what I'm saying? It's either for giving birth or enjoyment, and it's the passageway, it's the gateway to life, it's the gateway to pleasure, it's the gateway to knowledge. That's it. That's what I'm getting. It makes a lot of sense. Now I know, yes! That's why I love talking to you, because it's all the information comes through in a greater respect to what this is. My God, this is so fucking awesome. This is so awesome. So, because when you mentioned the fact that when he was, doing that act of eating her and then coming back to you, it heightened the senses. It heightened the senses more with the desire. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like chocolate. You can hear about the chocolate, but when you see it, right, and it becomes a delight in the eyes. And then it's like what happens when you see the chocolate and you want to eat it, your mouth starts to water, right? So there's a conduit with water. Water is the conduit to life. Water is also a conduit to knowledge as well. Water plays a role in how we exchange energy with body fluids, right? So when we are exchanging energy, we're receiving and giving. So it's also like we're retemplating the act of giving and receiving. Pleasure, enjoyment, knowledge, wisdom, surrendering to the feminine and masculine space, right? How it comes through and in which way and what manner. So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Oh my God, this is just awesome, awesome, awesome information. Awesome information. Even when you start talking about it, when I listen to your voice note, it makes me feel excited. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how do we get to a place when we when we are elevated, you want to feel like you get turned on, right? So we got to get turned on. And usually when you are performing oral sex, it's like a considered to be like a foreplay. It's like a foreplay. So you're performing foreplay, and when you're in the midst of that foreplay, you want to feel like you get turned on, because otherwise, if you don't get turned on, then the male is not able to have an erection in order to start with the penetration. So that's why that part and the essence of the soul desires to feel that first. And then as it goes through the stages of coming together, when we reach to that heightened, climax, that's when the download starts to come in. You see that? But we're attaining higher knowledge. We're attaining higher knowledge that has been hidden within us. And this information and this knowledge comes together from being creative with that third energy. That third energy is from who you're connected to and who you're connected with. So you got a taste of it with Dwayne. You got a taste of it with all the others, right? Now this is where we're taking it to the next level, where it's going to continue to become heightened with who we're connected to. And it's going to take us to an even higher dimensional space. More knowledge coming in, more energy that comes together in a collective space that creates more gifts, more talents, more wisdom, more peace, right? Things become more colorful. You start to slow down the aging process, right? You start to feel greater. There will be no need to think about food, because the light that comes through that source, that comes through that high energetic frequency, is what keeps us alive. And therefore we will no longer die again. See? And I already knew all of this. I already had that knowledge, but now it's taking it to the next level. Because I said it to Kiara. I said, Kiara, for some reason, Spirit is telling me that we're bringing it back to the purified state. The purified state. When you're in that purified state, there is something greater that comes through with it, but not everyone is able to get to that place if you do not let go of the shame and you know that with oral sex, there always has been shame and guilt surrounding it all the time. You see, and people, you see, and that's why society and religion plays a role in trying to delete it out, dismiss it, and stuff like that. And when that happens now, it's because they don't want people to get to that heightened state. You see what I'm saying? So they try to close it off, and it was distorted through the pornographic industry, because they were not connecting things to the heart space. You see, it was only about. So what I feel is that we're also rewriting the lower chakras. Okay, when it comes to just doing this as far as sexual gratification, and this is more adding into the mix of bringing it together from that heart space as well, where you're feeling the whole entire sacred orgasmic experience and that connection to the true Christ consciousness. Yep, that's what I'm getting.
So that is what I had in conversation with one of my friends that also had an experience to do with sexuality and sex and all of that stuff, and also this other person. So I realized that there was something going on energetically as a rewrite. And I knew when I saw the 1010, when I woke up, I said, oh, wow, I'm in a different energetic space, because even the pain I was having in my body, I was having pain in my right knee. My hips felt like they were falling apart. I had headaches. I was sleeping, odd hours and everything. So I knew something was happening energetically. I knew something was shifting, and I was in a different dimensional space. I also felt so much elevation and connection to my divine complement. And I knew something had played out in a past life with him. And I felt that desire and the desire and that craving to feel, to touch, which is what comes through for us when it comes to connecting to each other. And so it's not about just, like I said, just having regular sex. This is about how we are coming together in our divine sacred unions. And it is more coming from a space of intimacy, connecting, feeling, coming from the heart, being able to be open and opening up your heart, opening up your body, opening up yourself. Okay. And when you're in that space of vulnerability and surrender, because the surrender and the vulnerability is on both ends, and coming into an equal partnership, okay? And it's with that equal partnership, where it's not where one is having more dominion over the other, but understanding that it comes together, where we are being in an expression of the divine feminine and divine masculine as the co-creators, showing up in existence as the divine mother and divine father has before, when everything started from the beginning of time and we were in our Garden of Edens. It was shown to me from spirit that there were different archetypes of the Garden of Edens. And of course, heaven is how you feel heaven is to be, okay? The divine shows up in all of these expressions of love through each and every one of us. And it is not subjected to the physical female body and the male body, because there are male body genders who are in the expression of the feminine space. There are some who are in the female body in the expression of the masculine space. There's some who are transgenders that change their bodies, and it has nothing to do with the body, but it's how they feel into the expression of who they are, and allowing ourselves to overstand and understand that the divine is showing up as an expression through each one of us individually, and we're being able to be in that expression and being sovereign with it, okay? And that however it shows up, that we are honoring that space for ourselves, and that way we can be comfortable and vulnerable enough to be in the expression of it, and realizing and remembering that it's sacred, okay? So one of the notes that I took here also is that the yoni is a gateway to heaven. It is the portal in the web of life where there's an interconnection. And there are several gates to this portal. There's several gates, because within the womb space, there is a portal, and it leads us somewhere. And it's not where you're going physically there. You're there energetically, but it's to unlock yourself to that portal, because we each carry keys and codes with everything that's coming through with the shifts, everything that's coming through with the new DNA codes, anything that is not serving you, because everything that's happening, it's like I used to say, it's like being in a washing machine. It's like we are disintegrating, integrating, and we're also converging. So, and the convergence represents what's coming into union, and that means that you are releasing more and more of the feelings surrounding intimacy, your feelings surrounding sex, the relationships that you've had, what is playing out, you know what I'm saying? What is showing up, in your space now with, if you're still with a soulmate, okay, and you know that it doesn't feel right. You know that, for some, it's like you feel like you can't even feel that connection any longer with that person, or you feel like as if you can't even touch them, because you're coming back and you're converging into that pure space again. Doesn't mean that they're terrible. It's just that it's coming back into that space where you're honoring yourself, and you're also allowing yourself to be free, and you're allowing yourself to understand where it's coming from within you, as you're bringing yourself together in all the multidimensional space that you have ever been, who you've ever been in the past. What have been, has there been any blocks to love for you in every way? Because we can't leave this out. See, so, and the reason why Venus in Scorpio is so prevalent now with everything that's in Scorpio, okay, is because we're going deeper into it. We're no longer not looking at the shadow of the Lilith of, who you are or who you have been. Because even if you're in a male body, you still have been in a female body before. And how do you relate to intimacy? Do you relate to surrendering to the feminine, surrendering to your feminine parts of you, and how you connect to her, and knowing that you can't leave her out. She has to come together with you, because it plays a part in what you are creating. We can no longer feel that whatever existed in the beginning of time, when all the experimentation took place, that, or we can just do this with someone else, or we could just do this way, because of whatever control that was placed over the feminine energy, or control that was placed over the female, into thinking that, if I do this with her, and we have all this power play going on, we can make it work. Well, guess what? the universe, the spirit, spirit coming through from the central sun where the knowledge is, it can no longer sustain those old programs. It can no longer sustain how things were in the past. So that's the reason why you're feeling like you cannot relate to the person that you may be with, or who they were before. You don't feel that need, like, I want to just have sex, or I just want to do this with this person, or I just want to have this baby because this was in the program and this was in my culture, and stuff like that. Or if I had a child for this person, we have to get married. It cannot conform and hold in that space any longer, or being in the institution of marriage, the way how marriage has been played out throughout centuries. Okay. So know that what I wrote here is that vulnerability is your greatest strength. And what does intimacy mean for you is the key question. Are you able to be open? Are you able to connect to yourself? Because it starts from the self first. Because if you're not even able to look at yourself, connect with yourself, feel into yourself, what are your deepest desires? If you know your desire is for one thing, then be truthful about it. Be honest with yourself about it. Are you able to express that with your partner? And even if you say, well, I'm not with my partner now, it's key to know and identify with that. Because if the time comes where you're coming together with your twin or your sacred soul partner or your divine complement, whatever name you want to call them, it's still the sacred path. Are you able to be open enough to express yourself to them? Are you able to be open enough to express yourself to that person? Because I tell you what was so interesting. Me, I've always been known for my mouth and speaking up and all this to say. And the mere fact that I was having this discussion with two different people that I never spoke about, intimate details about myself. And then I realized, you know what? The more I spoke about it to them, I felt more liberated. I felt more liberated. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel ashamed. Okay, because a lot of times we feel ashamed of how we feel in expressing ourselves sexually. And I'm not saying that you got to go out there shouting it out to the whole, to the whole world, because we're gently taking steps towards being able to be open about ourselves sexually, where we don't have to feel like we're going to be attacked, or we're going to feel like we're going to be punished, right? Or we're going to be chastised because of what we feel, who we desire to connect to, and who we feel it with, you see, because it is sacred. And and yes, in most cases, it's private. You know what I mean? But imagine what it'll be like when we're in a world where we are honoring each other for the similarities and the differences in how we express ourselves, and not judge it and not put it down. You see what I'm saying? Because it just reminds me of what was written in the scriptures, when it said when God came into the garden, and it was metaphysical, and said, "Who told you you were naked? Who told you that this was wrong? You drove yourself out of the garden. You descended in consciousness. You descended into a place where you wanted to," and I want to take it in both sides. I don't want to look at it as if it's one-sided. You wanted to take yourself into experimenting, and you wanted to feel into the two aspects of yourself, okay? The good and the bad. Like, like you have that song by Rihanna, "Good Girl Gone Bad," right? And we change. But it's not about changing that we change. It's that you've always been that. It's to tap into who are you inside. How do you express yourself? Because you are a sexual being. You were created as a sexual being. You're created in the image and likeness of God. So spirit says, and I say spirit in the sense of God, the universe, mother, father, right? Who told you that sex was bad? Who told you that this was something that you just jump in and you create a baby and then that's it? Where is the connection? Here's a question for you, because I experienced this. Have you ever made love and you're laughing at the same time, and you make love and you're dancing? I mean, I'm not saying at the same time. I mean, maybe you can, I don't know. Or you're making love and you're in so much joy and you're connecting on so many levels. And then you can talk about the spiritual stuff, what's going on, and you start speaking in tongues, because this is what is coming together, what the true connection is, the intimacy. And then the knowledge starts to pour in. I've heard this from several people, and this happened to me too. As soon as I felt that connection and that ecstasy, you know what? The knowledge started to pour through. But when you close yourself off, and if you're shut down, meaning that you're afraid of, or you're in fear, or there's blocks because of pain that you're carrying and wounds from the past, then what'll happen is it gets closed off. And that's how you drive yourself out of that Garden of Eden. You drive yourself out of the paradise. You drive yourself out of beauty. You drive yourself out of the wonder and the amazement of this consciousness and where it takes you and elevates you. And you're so high. And it's a high that's a natural high, because you see, it's natural to be in a creative space. And I kept even saying in the book, I've spoken about this before, where I remember making love 4 or 5 times a day. And, and I come across with all this love anyways. It's like, I always say, oh gosh, it's like my soul is the instigator of love. Sharon, I'm talking about. And it's like, when I come around you, you just get all excited. And that's what the natural state is to be for all of us, is that we are instigating this energy and the intimacy that we can have with each other, not just subjected to just your twin or your sacred partner. It's with each other. That means that as we come around, that even if we don't have to physically touch one another, but you feel the energy and you start to feel like you're ignited. And that's what happened. And then as you feel ignited, nothing else really matters, because all you're doing is feeling the essence, and you feel like you can't keep still. That's what the true worship is. That's what the true element of worship is. It's not going before, a priest or confessing of sins and all that stuff. No, the true essence of worship is coming together, okay? Divine masculine, divine feminine. There is even a time in history, it was written to do with the honeymoon. That stage is coming. It's coming, because I had so many visions of these unions that come in. I want you to follow me here now. See, I didn't even know this is what I was going to talk about, but Spirit is just having it coming in and coming in now, like I have. And this is not, that's the first that I've said this before, where I saw with these unions coming in. And another reason why we're in sort of that physical separation, because we're working through the rewrites of the relationships we've had in the past and what we've had to let go. Okay, where it's no longer coming against, because a lot of things are integrating. And what'll happen is that there's like, it reminds me of the third installment of The Matrix, when they were all dancing and they were all like half naked and they were dancing and they were with their sacred partners. And they were in that act and that energy of making love, because, they said where you come together in a group and it's stronger, what do you think happens? Then you have love that's permeating on the earth. So when these divine unions come in, and it's important what Spirit wants you to know what's really happening, not even to know, to remember, because it's within your soul. It is within your DNA. So even if there is someone that you are in contact with, that maybe a lover has come from the past, or someone that you have interacted with sexually or just physically, energy, whatever the case may be, just review and see what is it that's showing up for you, because you're either having to bring it into its awareness or you're healing from it. So that way it is preparing you for that physical union that's also coming into play. And what's coming into play is how you are connecting yourself with this intimately, because you're being prepared for this coming together through this intimacy for what's coming through on the planet. Okay. So it's not just about coming together in just that sexual sense with your partner, but also what it means for Mother Gaia. Because it's in this glory is where the light that shines with all of this, the true knowledge continues to pour in. But it is only going to be coming through to those who are in their awareness of this consciousness and what it means for you in your own creation, what it means for you and your family, because your family plays a part in this union. If you're having issues with things that have hurt you in the past, to do with your parents, or anything to do with your body, anything that brings you into what there is for you to connect and to understand when it comes to the feminine space and the masculine space. They are helping and preparing you for this union in that space. Okay. And so as these unions come together, it's going to create a rippling effect. It's going to create a wave of changes on the planet. It's going to create a wave of what is coming through for those who are also newly awakening. Okay. And so it can't happen until certain people reach to a certain level of consciousness before, wherever you are located, that it does come together. So you know that there are people who are in other lands and other countries that are who have greater barriers to females and sexuality and all of that. And this is where, again, twin souls, you are placed in certain parts of the world and certain parts of, districts, counties, states, however you want to name it, because these are the major shifts that are happening now for the changes that are to come. Because it really doesn't matter as far as the government, because it's breaking down. All of that stuff is happening. But the love that comes together, the true love, the purity of this is what is bringing the changes. And that's the reason why throughout humanity's history, there have been blocks and things that have been distorted to throw you off track, you see? And that's why it's important for you to stay centered, stay focused, stay in your lane. You're welcome, my dear. Feel into what is important for you in your true connection to the Christ, your true connection to God, your connection to your divine complement, sacred partner, to your lover, but it's still in that sacred space, okay? And anything you can think of that has been painful for you, or a fear that you've had about it, then you know that that's the next stage. And some people say, well, how do I release that? The moment you bring it into its awareness, you're already releasing it. So when you think of the word intimacy, intimacy is, into me, I see my deepest desires. Into me, I see who I am. Into me, I see how I connect to myself, okay? Because it is through myself that I get to know God, that I get to know my partner, because that holy trinity, that triad, is your connection to yourself, your connection to your sacred partner, and your connection to God. And Spirit is reminding me, you didn't finish what you were saying with the templates that I saw. There were templates of male, female, two females, one male, two males, one female. So it is not subjected to just two. Spirit says that some of us are here to be in a divine expression of love in threes, some maybe fours, okay? It is not polygamy. It is not, oh, I'm going to get married to 10, 20 people. No, this has to do with a higher expression of love through intimate relationships that we have. But this has to do with people who are at a high level state of consciousness where there's no jealousy, there is no need to control one another, or anything to do with, how would I say it? Like say, for instance, a mother who had a child and their children is related to someone else that's married to someone else, and there's this pitting and fighting against each other and stuff like that, because it has to do with how we can also create units and families where we work together as one. And what happens is there's less stress. Do you see what I'm saying? There's less stress. And so this is what was shown to me several times with what and where the intimacy is taking us together. And it doesn't mean that the love that you have is going to be distorted any longer, because, throughout lifetimes, things have been changed and distorted and put into a different category, and the true meaning of it was distorted. And so that's why I'm telling you what it means. And it's polyamory, or it could be monogamy, but it could be those who are in a monogamous relationship in their own intimate way, but they're still in a higher expression of love with others. Do you see? So therefore, you're bringing it back, still back to a space of unity consciousness. Now, some of you may not want to agree right now, but just allow yourself, like I said, in time, if it comes to you, then you will over and understand where I'm coming from. Because you see, the true tribe of this consciousness has always been a unity of how we come together, but still maintaining our own individual parts of ourselves, our own individual expression of love at the same time while we have it in unison and unity. Okay. So I just wanted to tell you that. And I wanted to read to you. This is taken from someone that I have found online. This was, I think from about 3 years ago when I started recording more extensively to the book. And the author's name is Anaya Sophia. And that time she was married to Padma Ayan Prakasha. And they both collaborated together and it did a book. I recommend this book very highly. I read the book. I read it electronically. I purchased it for myself. It has helped to do such, it has given me such great clarity. I haven't read it since 2 years ago, I think it was, but almost every person that I've recommended it to, something has shifted for them. And it's not subjected to just females. It is also to do with males as well. It has to do with how we relate to each other, energetically, physically, with your body, everything. It also has healing exercises, you know, as we bring in internal energy with these codes. It also helps to shift through things that are happening through your organs, and especially your sexual organs. And this book is called The Power of Shakti. You can get it on Amazon for about, I think maybe it's cheaper now, I'm not sure. It might be $9.99 at the time when I got it. And I got the physical book itself. I also read the entire book in my book also as well. The information that I got from this book, I already had recorded it before I read the book. So what it did for me is it just kind of like gave me even more confirmations and adding, you know, stuff in there. And so this book in and of itself is, it relates again to ourselves, who we are, intimacy, how we relate to intimacy, the masculine and feminine side. It doesn't matter what gender you are, but it is definitely very important to, I call it more awakening and remembering than learning to your path and what it means for you. And intimacy is one of the most important factors more than anything else when it comes to your divine unions. There is no running away from it. There is no, oh no, this is not a part of my path. The true mission on this planet is love. The true mission on this planet is sexual energy, because we are sexual beings and we are expressing ourselves. It's through the sexual energy is how we all got here. So how can we dismiss it? How can we hide from it? This is who we are. It's in that spinning. I call it like being on a spin top. When you're in that spin top, something is coming out of it. Something is being created. So it's either a child, it could be a book, it could be a home, it could be anything that is being expressed. Okay. So I'm going to read this to you. So even if it's maybe too long for you, you can always come back to it because I'm reading this audibly. So when you hear it, there might be something that'll click for you or something that might shift you in this moment, because there are a lot of unions that are coming in to play. Really, really, really happening. And the biggest thing right now, again, they're showing me is the intimacy. The intimacy plays a very important part. Okay. So this title of this, when I got this, I'm reading from here a little bit, some of it. I'm just going to be reading excerpts from it where Spirit guided me what to read that is important right now. And it's called The Seven Gates. And parts of this is also in the book. Okay. Because the authors, they did it together. It's a male and female author. And it's called The Seven Gates. So when you think of when you're going through a gate, you're going through a gate because you're going through to something. You're entering into something. And when you're entering to something, you're entering it because what? You're looking to receive something. You're going to get something. You're going somewhere. You're getting somewhere. You're leaving from one place to get to the next place. Then when you finish with what you're doing, you're coming out of the gate and you're going back to where you came from. So isn't that how it relates to the vaginal birth? And, you know, you start out with either through the sexual act, you create something, and then whatever is created is going to come out. It goes in and it comes out. The key thing is what Spirit is saying is that what energy do you have within you when it comes to that space? Because if the child is created out of a space of rape, anger, frustration, say one parent is, the mother has wounded pains from the past through her mother and her ancestors, and that child is created in that space of anger, then the child may be born with anger and other things that are carried on and passed on from generation to generation. Also, the father could have also stuff that he's carrying in his wounds and womb space, because the fathers have wounds too, wounds. And that energy and that force that is penetrating to the female, okay? And once again, it's not just subjected to just male, female, because the energy still is in place when it comes to masculine and feminine. And she's receiving it. She's receiving it. And as she's receiving it, something is forming from what she's receiving. And it's all coming together. And what are we making here? What are we creating here? You see? And so it's important to understand why it's important to understand, and it's important to understand the sacredness of your womb, the sacredness of your vagina, the sacredness of your penis, the sacredness of all of it. Your breast, everything, because it's a part of your sexuality. It's a part of what comes into creation. And we have constantly kept recreating stuff, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And so now what we're doing is we're rewinding back now. And we are now recreating something differently. That's why there's a lot of children that are going to be coming in. I already saw there's going to be multiple conceptions, I should say, that are going to be happening all at the same time, practically. It reminds me of the village of the damned, but not the where it's a damnation. And it's like these children are being prepared to come in where they're not really coming in with karmic energy, or they have to clear, because, you know, the ones who are the way shows, we're clearing the way right now. So when the divine partnership comes together, physically and energetically, and creating these children, they're coming in waves with another templating of DNA that is also templating on the earth. And so we have to reach to a certain level of frequency with that before they're conceived. So they're being conceived in different waves as they're coming in different waves. And there's some who are leaving the planet to facilitate the change, because the earth has to maintain a certain equilibrium as we're going through this ascension process with all of this. And so it's in stages. So not everyone is going to be at the same level. Not everyone who might be listening to this might be ready to hear this yet. And it's okay. You can come back to it at another time, because either way, we're still all going to get there. We're still all going to get there. So I'm going to read to you now parts of the 7 gates and what it means. Okay. And the first gate, it says here, is the lips of love. The first gate is associated with the element of earth, opens with feelings of trust and praise. One enters the first gate. You know, when you used to say that true in church, I remember, enter into his gates with thanksgiving. But I say, enter into her gates with thanksgiving, because we're entering to her gates, right? We enter into mother's gates. It's how it starts. That's how it started from the beginning. And so we open up with feelings and trust and praise and appreciation. Praise begins to heal you of your own subjective or inner experience of life. It is a foundation for love, as appreciation leads to true gratitude and the ability to see the beauty in all beings. Praise, the gatekeeper of the first gate, allows us to let go of limiting habits of self-judgment and condemnation, and awakens us to the beauty and divinity of others and ourselves. As the first gate is cherished, she adorns you. when in her essence she throbs with fragrance and her full lips bloom, sweet and inviting, to receive the fullness of her hidden gifts. Pause and reflect. The more reverence and gratitude you present, the sweeter the gifts you will receive in return. The sweeter the gifts you receive in return, while approaching the yoni with a sense of being honored by a great presence, rather than being out to get something. Because, when you think of when someone says they're out to get something, if she feels, whoever's on the receiving end feels like you're out to get something, or they're going to leave me, they're going to abandon me because I gave them sex, I gave up my body, what happens is she's not able to open up as much. And then the next mate that she tries to get, same thing happens again. And so there's something closed off there. And then we went through the issues of abandonment and rejection, or sometimes if it even gets to a state of paranoia, and it still has to come from within that person to how they're feeling and what has been passed on from generation to generation when it comes to opening up, and opening up to the wrong person, opening up to an experience that something you've experienced before, and you do it again and again and again. And then sometimes what happens is the person blames the other person for what's happening to them, and all along it had to do with you, how you were feeling inside, how you weren't honoring yourself and being honest with your own feelings about it, okay, and how sacred it is for you. So all of this is what's changing. That's why we're here, to make these changes, and why these changes are happening, so we are coming back into the pure state of intimacy, okay? And so those are my words. And so I'm going to read further. It says, praise brings you into the beauty and divinity of another and of yourself. Honoring and appreciating are the basis for kindness and gratitude. The basis for love. Without praising, without appreciating, we shrink and wilt into our ego, allowing it to be the master with the soul as servant. Vulnerability and humility open the doorway to love and intimacy. Without vulnerability and humility, appreciation and devotion, the gates can never fully open, and the grail womb cannot be entered. In giving these qualities, we receive them. So you see, when we're not able to be as vulnerable as we can be, then what happened? Love, it just shuts down, and it becomes, how do I say, dark and gloomy. And then there's no real joy when it comes to being intimate with each other. You see, that's what happens. And then there's fear behind it too. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I had read somewhere that when there were these true intimate moments, the female was not engaging in any type of sexual act unless they were going to create something, because they knew that when they were engaging in the act of intimacy, something was being created, you see? And she was honored and worshiped, because that's what it is, because there's honor that comes with the feminine energy, because she comes forth with wisdom. And the more she's able to be in her full expression of herself, sexually as well, especially sexually, then the wisdom is attained. We connect to Mother Earth. We're able to receive information. We're able to have more joy. There's more abundance. The wealth returns, because the wealth has to do with the body, the mind, and the soul. It all comes together. It all comes together. But when we separate from the divine, when we separate from the truth of what this is, then everything starts to disintegrate. And then we're not feeling so alive again. You feel more tired. You feel more angry. It's like everything the opposite. And then that's how things start to die and fall apart. And it can't work, and you're trying to make it work, and you're trying to go only in the mind, and that's it, and the head, and what you're told and what you're taught, and hold on to these belief systems. And then what happens again? Then it starts to break down again. And then you're just really not happy. And then people are just having sex just for the pleasure, and that's it. And they're not feeling anything up here. They're not connecting to each other anymore. And then the sadness comes in, the sorrow, then the bitterness and the anger. And then one develops diseases of the body as they continue in the lies and not being authentic to themselves or with themselves, you see? So that's why it's important to be able to be at a place where you can trust. But the trust has to start with you. It's not where you're saying, well, I can't trust you unless you do this for me, and telling the person what you want them to do in order to feel trust. You have to start from within yourself with that trust. You have to start with yourself with how much you are open to what you desire. And if you are not receiving what you're desiring, then you have to look at what are you doing? What are you coming across within yourself that you're not receiving it? You see? So this is where the rewrite is coming in, where you're not just going along with it because this is what has been happening before, and I can't get anything any better, or this is how it was in my family, and this is customary that you are arranging this marriage or arranging this coming together with this person, and yet still there is no connection whatsoever. You see? So that's very, very important. So it says here, the first gate opens up into trust. The truth is about surrendering to your own nature, to the soft, open receptivity of your being. Trust yourself and what it is you are letting in or keeping out. The wounds women carry here, both personal and collective, revolve around this issue of trust. For men to come fully into this first gate, they must approach it with both praise and purity, fully honoring this sacred portal into the feminine. For a woman to surrender into the space of trust, she must respect her own sanctity and feel respect and praise from the man that she's with. The nature of relationship today has led to a deep forgetting of this sacred path, and most women hold a great unconscious sadness at the loss of their connection to the divine feminine, which is accessed through the first gate. And with it, the loss of the profound sense of communion and wholeness that comes from fully honoring and being honored by your partner. True praise and appreciation allows the small self to fall away. That's the ego. It is this small self's fear that in praise it will be giving away its power, love, and beauty to something outside of itself. There is nothing outside of itself. In praise, you feel the beauty, vision, and perfection of another welling up inside yourself, and speak it to honor the very gift and wonder of that person's existence, of all existence. To see, feel, and honor another's presence fully, whether human or divine, allows the gift you perceive in another into your own heart, body, and soul. In fully giving your appreciation to another, you feel the depth to which he or she is always and only a reflection of yourself. To be devoted means to be committed to giving to your partner, to your soul purpose, to your healing, and to God. These qualities enable all the gates to open and flower. So when you think of the flower in a garden, right? Because that's who you are. Or I should say that's a part of your body. It's like a flower. The vagina is like a flower. It's watered, it gets the sun, and it also, love, like when you're speaking to the flower and say, oh, how beautiful you are. And you want to feel that energy where someone is expressing that love to you, even if they say how beautiful you are, but you're feeling it within yourself and you're receiving it. And then what happens is when the flower receives the water, being watered and feeling that love, what happens? The flower starts to bloom. The flower starts to open up. But if there is no sunshine and no water, then what happens? The flower starts to die. She's not able to open up herself. She's not able to feel the full expression of herself through true, pure love. You see? That's what happens here. So that's why it's important, again, to remember how much are you connecting to yourself, honoring yourself, really being truthful and honest about your feelings and how you feel and how you relate to your own intimacy. Okay? And it says here, devotion is serving the flowering of love allied with the appreciation of another's efforts. So I just read just that first part to do with the first gate. I'm going to go now to the second gate. The second gate is the gratitude spot. The second gate is associated with the element of water. Remember, I spoke about water. I did talk about water. You heard me say it also in that recording that I played earlier. Water is the conduit to so many things. It's the conduit to the other side. When you think of oral sex, there's saliva involved. And you think about when you're having physical sex, there's still some type of element of fluids involved, still some water. Something is being exchanged. Something is being shared energetically that is producing something, you see? That's why some people, they go and when they just want to have physical sex. And when you think about yourself, if you've had a sexual encounter before, you have to feel aroused. He has to be erected. Something has to get aroused and turned on, and therefore your body produces a fluid. And as it produces the fluid, because she's now feeling that exciting energy, she's now starting to get turned on. Something is opening up. Something is igniting. And as she is being ignited and feeling that ecstasy, excuse me, then he is able to also rise to the occasion, because it starts from her first. She has to feel into her own intimacy, into her own power that she has with that. And just see how magical this becomes when you were speaking on it. At least I'm speaking on it. We're speaking on it in this term, and how it turns you on, whether it starts from the foreplay, and then the actual feeling, and then what comes to with the fluids, and then when he enters into her gates with thanksgiving, and we're in a court of praise. And as things start to unfold, then something is coming across as a penetrating force, and something is pumping up into something being created. You see what I'm saying? And the more she feels opening up to herself, because if she was to close off her whole body and self, then how is she able to receive anything? She has to be able to be open. But it's not just the physical opening, it's also the whole energy and the feeling that comes with it. And it's not like, oh, this person is just on top of you and then that's it. No. Or he, or even within himself. It's about really feeling that connection that you're having, and what is really coming through between both at the same time. And what does that mean for you and that person and the planet? Okay. Big difference. Huge magnitude of, so you're telling me, like, when this starts to happen even more now, for a lot of us that are coming into our unions, you're going to start to see more things magically start to happen around in your space. I mean, like, totally, like, effortless is what I'm talking about. See? Totally effortless, totally different, totally transpiring is what Spirit is telling me. This is bigger and greater than what we've ever could even realize, okay? Because it started out in some point in history, but it never got to its full fruition, because now we're talking about a grand reunion. These sacred unions is not just you personally. It's the grand reunion of the soul. It's the grand reunion of what the soul's desire has always been, is to really experience true intimacy, and how we can have it with our partners, how we can have it with our children, how we can have it with our families, how we can, and I'm talking intimacy in the sense of being able to be open with one another and free, and not feel dogmatic about it. It seems like it's 1 hour and 11 minutes, 111. Okay. Now, that is Spirit on purpose. Absolutely magnanimous. So I'm going to go further. And it says, gratitude is the attitude of enlightenment, flowing naturally in the wake of praise. Thanking begins to counter the positions and judgments we have around our relationship with the experience of our bodies and the world around us. As the judgments we hold in these areas dissolve, we reconnect with the world as it is, rather than the world as we perceive it to be. I often refer to the nectar as the second date, as the sweet honey milk that is secreted as an aftermath of experiencing pure innocence, a nectar that the world has not known for a very long time. This is the divine milk honey that is often described as seeping out of the goddess herself. And you all know what that is. I don't need to explain it, right? The G spot is the gate of gratitude. In its wholeness, the gratitude spot is the foundation of ecstatic, erotic pleasure, where both partners receive the gift of the woman's expression and arousal. When gratitude is showered into the G-spot, it opens. Remember, I talked about the opening. Then gratitude wells up from the flow of Shakti as she is seen, heard, felt in her fullness for the first time in eons. She beams with an exuberance to share her gifts and knowledge. In her gratitude, she wants to pour outward from herself in an even greater amount, knowing as she gives, she receives. Gratitude results in a desire to constantly give outwardly, becoming circular and building upon itself. Like how when you're building up the momentum and The Spirit is guiding me to talk about the ecstasy. It's in the ecstasy, it's like something is bursting, just like the sun. When the sun comes out, the sun is not giving a fuck about whether anything can stop it from feeling itself into the earth and all of the other planets. It's just going to keep bursting and in ecstasy. And we represent that star and that element of itself that bursts into something, you see? And even in the book that I recommended to you, what was interesting is that there's the element of exercise with the sound that comes through when you think of that ecstasy, when you're in that intimate act. And it will come through stronger when you're really having the element of this ecstasy with your partner, okay? Your sacred soul partner, I'm talking. And it is the element of so it's like and I have, and then we think about and that's the reason why the element of the female, or whoever represents that feminine expression, where the ecstasy, the ecstatic, the static, the electricity, right? You bring the house down. And then what happens is it becomes like an element and a force that sends a rippling effect to changes. And that's the reason why, if we don't come into that space of truly understanding what the sacred intimacy is, it's not going to come into its full force and its full effect. And what will happen is it continues to create a domino effect of the changes of the people around us. It's going to propel other people to want to connect to their true selves. It's going to propel people to truly connect to their true partners. There will no longer be elements of marriages and things that are based on money alone, or what this person can do for the other. There's true connections. There is more intimacy. There is more sacred sex that's taking place. That means that families stay together, families that bond together. They're doing everything and being in that divine true worship. That's what this does. This is what brings in that ecstasy. So can you just imagine with me now how the radius of and what's coming across in all the different sections of where twin souls are, and the ones that come into that sacred space, and then that rippling effect is going to cause another person to do the same thing and another person to do the same thing, and everything's just constantly shifting and shifting in the element of, if you hear 5 different separate sets and templates of twin souls in different areas going and it's just lifting up, and it's just raising higher and higher and higher. That is exactly what Spirit is talking about. That's exactly what we are. That is the mission. That is the true mission right now. That's the true mission always. It's always been that. But you see, there's people out there, and I don't want to be ragging on people, but where they think that the true mission is, if you got to do some work here, it really is all about the sacredness and the true connection that we're having with ourselves and with our partners and to God, and coming back to it. That's why the book is called The Return of the Garden of Eden. We're returning back to that space of paradise, and what it means for you, what it means for me, what it means for all of us. What is your definition of paradise, or the Garden of Eden, or how you're creating it and recreating it? And you cannot leave out the intimacy. We have to bring in that intimacy. It's already there. It's just about you unlocking it and remembering yourselves as to what it means in its purest state, in its purest form, and where that brings you into your state of consciousness, and how it relates to this unity consciousness, as it continues to template on the earth, as we're all going to be walking around, roaming, feeling that ecstasy all the time. Not where sadness is going to seep in and, no, it's going to start to keep on integrating until it's stabilized. And that as soon as you come into contact with another person, they're like, oh my God, I'm feeling it. Oh, I feel this. And you just want to continue in that process of making love and feeling that. And the making love doesn't mean that you have to necessarily always get into the physical act. Because I told you, when that occurred, when I spoke earlier, is that I felt the merge with my divine complement and my twin at the same time. And I was in one space. And it's like it's going to be a point where there's no genitals involved. So we're just always in the energy of making love. We're always will be in that sexual energy where it's no longer dormant, it's no longer shut down. It is constantly in its motion, because that is truly who we are. You just don't remember, or maybe you do, but now you're taking it to another notch. Okay? So I'm going to get back to the gratitude again. Gratitude results in a desire to constantly give outwardly, becoming circular and building upon itself, allowing the outflowing of love to continue from the soul filled with Shakti. This is one of Shakti's secrets that she does not reveal immediately. She lets you explore, just like when you have foreplay, you explore and discover her intimately first, feeling your way through your ancient pathways, familiar on some level. She shares energy, she heals, she clears, she builds trust, and then she expands. That's what happens. You expand in consciousness when you're at that space where you're healing. And it's always, we're always in a place of healing all the time. When you all come together, this is the holy matrimony. We're all gathered here together in holy matrimony. And when she comes into that space with her true divine partner, she expands in consciousness and he joins her and they're doing it together. Okay? And they're templating it together at the same time. And she expands into her true essence, letting you fall into this river of bliss with great joy, in gratitude for her being acknowledged. She lets you fall in love with her and shows you her greatest potentials. So that's one of the things when I read this part here to do with how she lets you fall in love with her. This has been one of the greatest fears of the divine masculine, is that they're not remembering, but now they're starting to remember the true powers of the divine feminine. Before, they were probably thinking that, we're doing something and why is it they can't stop thinking about her? What is it about her that makes him feel so, or him, it could be a she too, so drawn to that person? Not knowing that it has to do with that deep connection that we have, you see, with one another. And so when he goes deeply into that space with her, and it's not just due to the physical body, it's talking about in the energy, what happens is it's almost like feeling like you're swallowed up, I guess, or like you're you don't even know if you can identify yourself, like where am I, am I losing myself within this person? I don't know if I want to be in this space, because then I might lose myself. And I feel helpless and powerless and I'm losing my own power, but that's not what it is. It's just to remember to understand that it's not about taking away. It's about what's adding, what is coming together, what has always been there. But we're unlocking the keys again to what this means as it is coming together and what it means to surrendering to it, because when it is in that space of being together, it is stronger, and it's the power that's within them individually. Because remember, you're doing this energetically within yourself, because you have to come into your own power before you can come together with your divine partner. Okay, where you're not giving away of yourself, or if you're not being in your true authentic space and your full expression and your true intimacy and how you feel about yourself in relation to them. And, all of this is very key element to how you're able to come into in a greater balance. And it's in harmony and it's harmonized. Okay. So when we think of, again, that second gate, you have to ask yourself, how does that second gate make you feel? What do you need? Have you ever felt as if you were disempowered in this lifetime or any other lifetimes, if it's playing itself out? Do you feel rage? How were you able to reconnect? Because even if you have gone through pain and stuff like that, are you able to reconnect yourself to others? Are you able to reconnect to love? Are you able to reconnect to intimacy? Okay. And meaning that you are coming from a place of wisdom with it and how it can help you in coming into your own union. Okay. So now we go to the third gate. The third gate has to do with the clitoris. It's called the blooming red rose of the clitoris. The third gate is associated with the element of fire and opens with the feelings of honor and reverence. Compassion is the natural motion of a life moving in praise, gratitude, and love. As one's consciousness naturally expands, compassion replaces judgment, initially with oneself and then with others. The judgments we hold in this area, even if not conscious, create experiences of unworthiness and dissatisfaction in all areas of life. See? And so when we think of the clitoris, is the red rose a symbol of the grail and of Magdalene in the third gate, the opener to the way to the cervix, the fourth gate, the entrance to the womb. The third gate only opens up in the bliss and purity of love being lavished upon it, in the spirit of giving and of devotion. When the third gate of the clitoris is stimulated, it creates waves of resonance that nourishes the whole central nervous system, feeding our intuitive and psychic abilities. When the clitoris is stimulated in play, gratitude, appreciation, love, and enjoyment, we create more of these same qualities in our whole central nervous system. As this occurs, all the nerves along your spine recalibrate and retune. It would be hugely beneficial to become aware of this at the time, taking in nourishing deep breaths and guiding the pleasurable feelings from within the clitoris into the spinal cord and up into the brain. As you do this, the old programs are deleted and thought patterns are rewired, enabling you to witness and transcend many limits of the mind. As this is connected to and heals, the compassion that arises serves to take us deeper into embracing those parts of ourselves that are lost, separated, and isolated. This embrace allows us to heal the abuses, the errant mind, the disconnection from our bodies, the disconnection of our sexuality with soft tenderness and gentle tears. Vulnerability arises and the hardness cracks as we soften our armor. We soften what is rigid within, the protection and the disconnection, the pain and numbness felt at the clitoris, to allow reconnection and ecstasy to reignite softly yet surely. The numbing or disconnection of the clitoris is the main reason why women cannot reach orgasm. Their energies are stuck in their heads, thinking, fretting, and worrying. To orgasm, a woman must sink her awareness into the clitoris and release her preoccupation with her thoughts. But of course, many are not even aware they are stuck in their heads, nor do they know how to disconnect with their mind, or some fear dropping their awareness into their sexuality for reasons that need to be addressed. And this is for that the woman can feel free, alive, and sensually creative. You know, what's interesting is that when I started out recording for the book back in early January 2015, the first 3 hours I spent speaking to my aunts, and I was touching on the case of sacred sexuality. Sacred sexuality. The book title is The Return of the Garden of Eden, but it's not yet published as yet. I'm not looking anymore, but I'm just waiting on Spirit bringing someone who is going to assist with it being published, because it's the modern Bible, and it's going to be in segments, just like Harry Potter, like a series, and it touches on many, many topics. And I touch on the topic of sacred sexuality quite a lot, and there's a reason why. And so when I was talking about it in the first three hours of the book, it was I was discussing from my memory to do with even masturbation and sexuality and where it brings us, and that it had nothing to do with gender only, and where it takes us, and it really does release and takes away all of the stuff that no longer serves us. And as I stated before, things have been taught as it being a taboo, or it's not the thing to do, or whatever, so that way you stay numbed down and disconnected and disassociated with the true nature of who you are. And when you give rise to yourself, because that's where it always takes, we have to give rise to something in order to have it in motion. You know, you got to start something. Something has to be ignited. Something has to be propelled into an energetic space for things to get in motion. And it's not just getting it in motion, but how can we bring it back to life? How can we bring ourselves back to life? Is that we come from that same sexual energetic space from whence we came from, whence it started. Whence it started. We were that spark. Okay? And it's through the sexual energy that we were created. So now I'm going to go to the fourth gate. And the fourth gate is associated with the element of air and opens up with embracing of all duality. All pairs of opposites get played out from within the closed fourth gate, as a heightened sense of polarity originates from here. The fourth gate is the cervix, entrance to the holy of holies, the cosmic womb, the grail, the grail that bore the daughter of the Christ, Yeshua. Yet she herself knew that the opening to the grail lies through the fourth gate in each and every woman. The fourth gate is a diamond opening, a stargate of your cervix. The opening into your womb, the opening into the infinite space. This diamond shape is similar to the outer layer of the sacred geometrical figure of the Sri Yantra, the yantra or pattern of the goddess of all creation, the creation that is held within the yoni and womb of all women. The yoni becomes a portal to the divine when the first three gates are connected and healing personally and collectively. One has to feel your own healing and take on the collective healing in order for the yoni channel to become a gateway into the infinite womb. This is the way it has always been done and always will be done. What affects one woman affects all women in the web of life and interconnection that we all live in. Okay? Most neo-tantric sexual healing focuses on the personal healing only, neglecting the deeper and larger part of the collective feminine, which is why, again, Jupiter's in Scorpio, because we're going deeper into the feminine consciousness. What is it that has held her back from being able to be open with herself? And we all know that so much stuff has happened out there with the Me Too movement, and sexual, when it comes to the sexual vibration of females and how they've been treated. I've had so many past life memories of being a sex slave and warped feelings of being in love with my twin while he was torturing me. You know, it's all these different things. And all of this plays a part for each and every one of us, is what we're looking at here, to heal all of the experiences that we've had that had brought us into the that place of being so unhappy, of being in so much pain, and then carrying that pain from within the soul and reincarnating with it again, and also processing through the womb space to our grandmothers and our great grandmothers, you know, that has been repeated, you know, this constant cycles of abandonment and rejection and separation, that separation, and not being able to feel the true connection with each other, and not feeling separated any longer. So now I'm going to get to that place now where they call it the light and dark rivers. How are we able to integrate the light and the shadow parts of ourselves so that we are more in greater balance with ourselves in connecting to true intimacy? The fourth gate is known in alchemical terms as the dweller on the threshold. This is a vital place for all women to enter. And when I say all women, please know this is also in relation to those who carry that feminine space. But for all intensive purposes, this has to do with women because of the ones who are here in the physical female space with the womb and the vagina. Okay? It is a vital place for all women to enter and is the greatest barrier and guardian to the womb's mysteries. It is here that the reversal of roles happens, where the soul becomes master of the ego, where before it was the physical body, you know, just physical penetration, sex is not what is playing at hand here. It's reversing, where now the soul is taking over and we are coming into partnerships where we're coming from our hearts first. That leads the way in how we're connecting for the entire body to feel the all there is orgasmic experience with the divine, through our sacred partners, okay, and with them. It says the soul becomes the master of the ego instead of the ego being master of the soul, as the soul is made of love and giving with no need for itself. This is what you have to be living in order to enter union, in order to enter the womb. One has to be in a place of no need and giving to open this gate. One has to be integrated and whole within oneself. The fourth gate, as I said earlier, is where the light and dark rivers of polarity and duality flow. That is the nature of the dweller in itself. This guardian seated at the fourth gate is the age-old inner power struggle between the good girl versus bad girl, personified at the beginning of human history by the feminine archetypes of Lilith, Dark River, and Eve. Only when the light and dark rivers meet and easily flow into one another, only then does the fourth gate open. The dark river is a source of power, freedom, sexuality, and seduction in its wild, untamable, and raw feminine expression. The light river is one of the sacredness, purity, love, innocence, and virginal in its soft, kind, and gentle vision of feminine beauty. The original story of creation begins with a powerful goddess known as Lilith, Adam's first wife, who was strong, independent, and highly sexual, free and untamable. She loved fiercely but would not succumb to any form of domination. Her feminine power had to be honored, and when it wasn't, she left Adam in the Garden of Creation and went off on her own. The story even warns us that she went against God's wishes, which clearly reveals to us the sheer power of her virtue and unwavering sense of self-love. After Lilith, we're introduced to Eve. In the biblical story, we're told that Eve was created from Adam's rib. So immediately there's a sense of ownership, a play between the creator and the created. Eve was the complete opposite of Lilith, soft, gentle, subservient, and passive. Her role was to serve Adam and create the children of the future. Despite Adam's near-perfect design, still within the sweet and innocent heart of Eve, there was a flicker of Lilith's spirit that remained. As we're told, it was Eve that bit into the apple of the forbidden fruit. From there on, Eve carries the burden of the shame and guilt of being the one that had them both cast out of the Garden of Eden, which we know that it was still a metaphysical story, but it is a representation of that energy in self and the feminine and how she has felt, how it was written in history that was her fault, why everything was destroyed and everything fell apart. And so many are holding this in their consciousness coming from, the religion structure, and that she comes from the man's rib, when that's not true. So, of course, it was all in place to how we were descending in consciousness, and we wanted to, experience what we know. So all those stories were created for its reason, to how can we find ourselves back together again? How can we put ourselves back together again and recreate the true essence of love, the true essence of the purity of love, and not distort it any longer? So it says here, this polarity still gets played out within the hearts of mortal women here on earth. One moment we're Lilith, powerful, sexual, forbidden, untamable, creative, wild, and free. And in the next moment we become Eve, sweet, caring, gentle, loving, innocent, pure, and nice. Men imagine that they do not have to deal so much within this archetypal power play that can at times play itself out on a daily basis with women. But they do. They experience this polarity when in relationship with women as a form of projection. How many times have you been on the receiving end? Turn the page. The receiving end of the man adoring your Lilith nature when you first meet or in the early stages of dating, and then once you become his, he begins to scorn and hate that part of you, manipulating and cajoling you into becoming Eve all the time, which women usually buy into, silently agreeing to his demands for a multitude of reasons, ranging from he will love me more, or I won't lose him if I become what he wants me to be, and the classic, it is right to be a good woman, I must abandon that part of me which is bad. The real betrayal is between both parties, the woman betraying her full self and the man betraying his innocence as he sides with the dualistic nature of his mind. I feel that a woman can accept her Lilith and Eve aspects relatively easily once we are told about them and embark on some sexual healing to bring them back into balance. I feel at this current time on the planet, it's the masculine that is rigidly holding on to what is seen as good and bad and finds it very difficult to see his woman bearing both fruits. The usual ending of the tale is that the man goes out to hunt for Lilith, seeking an illicit affair that seems to bring him back to life. Key words. Because I had indicated, I don't remember which video, I remember I recorded how I did a reading for a young man that acted exactly like my divine complement. And I knew that I was supposed to observe and to put the pieces together to what was happening energetically and within the divine masculine consciousness. And he said he was starting to feel what the other females were feeling because he was involved in so many different affairs with several women. And he realized that it was making him feel bad now. So, because, the veil is so thin. And even though he had all these affairs with all those women, still they were not the one. And I told him, I said, I'm telling you something that I told my divine complement. I said, it's because you're searching. You see, so it shows you that the masculine is searching and is always searching for that feminine energy that brings him back to life. You see? And so he searches and he finds and he thinks this is the one. And then next thing you know, things start to go sour and bad, or whatever you want to call, how you want to word it, when things don't work out again, or the control and the manipulation comes into play, or a child is involved, or they don't get married, and then, oh, you better marry me because I got pregnant, or the other one is manipulating because I couldn't believe I was reading a story today of a woman who was drowning her 5-month-old baby because she wants child support from the father, and she records it. You could look it up. And I was like, is this what the world comes to, that you hurt your own baby just to get money? Another mother, she threw the baby on the ground, on the grass, because she didn't get child support. She just threw the baby on the grass in the car seat, since he wouldn't give child support. So, hey, to heck with it. So there's like, what about that's your child. That's your child. But this is how much the disintegration has occurred when it comes to relationships, that it's not even about the child. It's about themselves. It's what's that wound within themselves, what is a constant search and a conquer and quest. And it's on both sides. It's on both sides, and how it becomes dysfunctional. And then who gets affected? The child. And the child is a product of the dysfunction. And then it continues in another cycle, and another cycle, and another cycle. And so these cycles are what's ending. And so it's not about just going out and having several affairs and finding and seeking love from another partner. You see, because after a while, it'll wear off when it had nothing to do with what the truth is as far as what you're seeking, because that which you are seeking is within you. And these partnerships are about how you're becoming more balanced within yourself, and then you're able to connect to someone else who is also balanced within themselves, you see? And so as the masculine has always been seeking something, and they've always wanted all of it. They want the excitement, and they also desire, or choosing the desire to connect to the Lilith and to Eve at the same time. And the same thing it is for the female. I mean, there's some those in the feminine energy, they seek to have the masculine that's strong and valiant and protective and gentle and nurturing and loving and surrendering. You know what I mean? Where the female takes over and she gets on top, It's stuff like that. And it's all that, it's a role playing, because twins, we switch places too with what, the female who's in the feminine energy, she switches and she comes back into the masculine energy. And it's also showing her strength through the beauty and the surrendering and the letting go, right? And not needing to be in control, and still being in her own control and power within herself. You see, when we think about the movie Boomerang, where the tables were turned on, the man who was portraying, Eddie Murphy was portraying the man that was constantly going after females for their bodies, whether she had pretty toes or not. And it was all external. And finally, a female came into the picture, Halle Berry, hail up Halle Berry, where she was coming from her heart. And she said, love should have brought you home last night. If you loved me enough, you would have. But it's not based on saying if you love me enough. It's more like if you were honoring yourself enough. If you were truly loving yourself enough, then you would know to realize and to see the truth about who you're connected to. You would feel into what is it that's been missing, because there's always something that will come up missing. And it's that part of yourself that will go into that self-realization that, hey, I may have this, I may have that. And it's not about even anymore about, how the person looks. Because if you were feeling this hard connection with this person, it has nothing to do with their race, it has nothing to do with the age, it has nothing to do with the culture. It is what it is, because we are showing up as love being expressed in many forms and in many ways. You see, many forms and many ways. You can't stop it. It just is. You feel that pull because it has been created that way. We are in that creation of how the divine shows up in the microcosmic aspect, you see? And so as I continue reading on, it says that he's seeking the illicit affair that seems to bring him back to life. At first, he is enticed and seduced, thrilled by the masterful knowingness of Lilith's charms. Yet it is a presence that he cannot handle for very long, as she is polarized and only knows one identity. Eventually, just as he feels he's about to become lost in her presence, he reverts and runs from her in terror. So that's what creates that separation thing, because some of it also comes from worthiness, because some of our divine masculines feel as if they're not worthy of this type of love, because they can feel it. They can feel it into the utmost, how do I say, energy. Okay. And it's where there's a constant thought, feeling, surrounding this. And so they realize the value of the feminine energy. They realize the magic that comes with the feminine energy. They realize the power that comes with the feminine energy. They know and see how things have been. That's why the way how God designed it is where they get a taste of it, and we don't know as humans, the human race, I should say, and the divine race, is that we sometimes don't know what is the best or the highest for ourselves unless we're experiencing the opposite. And so this is the reason why they may be in karmic relationships or karmic situations. So that way, it's not only just about clearing that line and healing through it, but also it creates that polarity to be able to have something to view from in hindsight, like stepping back and looking at a movie, and, and we pay attention to the experiences that we have had or having, and say, you know what? I think this is what makes me feel better. This is what's working better for me. And therefore, they're in that space right now of really realizing more and more where that feminine energy comes into as a greater strength for them, healing for them, balance for them. Okay. And I know that because of males that I've been, coming into contact with, the ones who are in the male bodies now I'm speaking of. And also the dreams that I've had with my divine complement and my twin, and how much more it keeps coming across in all the dreams that they wanted to hear my voice, or they're hearing my voice. And, there's a healing effect that comes with the feminine voice and who they're connected to. Okay. Or even the touch, because sometimes it could be just that touch, and there's a healing effect on both sides that comes from that. Okay. And still, it has to do with how we're honoring both sides of ourselves, internally and externally, both. Okay. So now it says here that he's fearful that she's claiming his soul, and he runs back to Eve begging for her forgiveness, which is what usually has happened throughout this journey, the twin soul awakening journey, where I hear someone say, oh, he went back to his karmic, or he went back. And it's for several reasons. One, again, is, they're receiving codes. We're receiving codes within each other with that contact that we make. Then they go back, and then they start to disintegrate, and they have to work through that alchemy, that sacred alchemy of what's shifting from having that relationship. Okay. And remember too, that the karmic person is someone you've also had a relationship with in a past life. You have played roles as that wife and husband of that person. So they're helping you too with processing and healing and shifting out all the stuff that no longer serves us and have remained as blocks to this, to love. So the divine masculine and the divine feminine has had to go through relationships of the past to heal through everything that you have ever had to do with every single male or female that you have had a relationship with, to get you back to what? To one, to that centered space, to the void. Okay. And so as we go through the elements of what we're shifting through, and and bringing the unconscious, bringing out what's unconscious, what's still within you, to the conscious place, meaning that you're in awareness of what it is you're looking at to shift through, to heal through, and to bring it back into that purified state. That's what's happening here. And so he goes back to Eve for her forgiveness. Maybe they go back, if they go back to the car and say, they feel safer because it may not be as intense. It may not be as intense, or it may be that there's something more that they have to work through karmically with that person. That's another reason that this is happening, that could be happening as well. It could be both. And so she has become broken inside, and she accepts him back, writhing in pain. Some people who stay in relationships that they know they're unhappy. They know that they're not getting that connection or that sacred, intimate feeling. Like they know that their heart may be with someone else, or they know that it's over, but they're staying for the sake of the children, or monetary reasons, or, whatever the situation may be, or because of a cultural reason, because it's an arranged marriage or something that was arranged. And so there's a distrust of the masculine, where the feminine, where they start to distrust the masculine and say, oh, they'd never stay. They're always cheating, or they can't trust whatever they say to them, because then it changes again. And so she sits and she roots and she cries in infinite tears into the realization that she has shamefully disconnected from her Lilith. Okay. Meaning that when you are not in balance with yourself, meaning that that there's something more within you that's fiery, and what brings you back to life, what ignites you, and you numb it down because you want to please the man, or you want to please the person, and you're not being your true self, you start to build up in anger and resentment. That's why a lot of females, especially, they will develop diseases of the body. Okay. Either breast cancer, then it goes to the liver, the lungs, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, all these different diseases start to develop in the body, because she is not being facing her own truth about her relationships or herself and what she has chosen. Okay. And it does affect the womb space. So all these things is what I know Spirit wants me to discuss, because this is what has shaped us into the relationships that we have now, and how it's changing and shifting and going into the dynamic of what is it that is serving our highest right now? What is it that's changing, that we are no longer going to keep on and on in that cycle any longer? And it's affecting everyone, regardless of whether they're aware of it or not. Okay. So it says here that the true bond between Adam and Eve has been broken, and it only exists as a form of fusion and a connection based on a lie. That is where men get hooked into this particular form of duality. The drama can be easily healed by both people at first, simply understanding and owning this type of duality. Ask to see and feel the deeply unconscious energies of attraction and repulsion towards Lilith, which sleeps dormant within you until you're triggered. Once you have the energies to hand, both people will need to begin a course in sexual healing. A woman has to be shown, guided, and encouraged how to reawaken Lilith. It's usually Lilith that has been suppressed. Although it can be a role reversal, a woman can easily be hiding within her Lilith energies, nursing a huge wound of disappointment and or brokenheartedness, feeling that the Lilith archetype will keep her safe and protected. Like some that are like, they're like, no, I'm not going to get involved here. And they shut themselves off to love altogether because they've been hurt before. Or that part of Lilith where she got to be strong and she will not allow herself to be vulnerable, and she will not say, I love you. Can't say I love you. I won't say I love you, because then I'm afraid I'll be hurt. I'm afraid I'll be left and abandoned. You see? So that can describe the Lilith archetype. Or she could be in the Lilith form where maybe she's a prostitute and she likes to give of her body, but she's not connecting with love. And so finally a man comes along, or a woman comes along, that wants to express love to her, and she runs from it because she feels she doesn't deserve it. So what happens is she runs from it and she continues on the cycle, but still she feels empty inside. So, that's just an example that I can give you of the Lilith, and it can be reversed where it's a male that also is in that cycle too, where they feel they don't deserve this type of pure state of love and they feel they're not worthy of it. So you can move yourself into that space of forgiveness and healing that, yes, you do deserve it. Yes, we're on a cycle now of change. We're not continuously repeating what has been perceived and what has been taught throughout centuries to how love should show up and what it should look like. Okay. And so it says here, the Lilith archetype will keep her safe and protected, as Eve was far too open, naive, and vulnerable. While a man has to root out the belief structure, they're saying it, that he has embedded into his mind. Once he has done that, he will then have to be reintroduced to a woman who healthily houses both qualities. It will have to become his experience that two are actually one. Lilith and Eve can come to be lived within a healthy, balanced woman. Lilith and Eve, I'm going to rephrase that, can now be within a healthy, balanced feminine. Okay? And that is what your male partner is mirroring what is being felt by your inner masculine. But like most things on the spiritual path, the woman has to go first and take those first courageous steps, only because the masculine has become so set. It is only the fluidity of the feminine that can bring about the balance, which I also said that in the book, that Spirit said it to me in the word that was used was kings and queens. The queens must rise first. The queens must rise first to her full power. It is within the feminine space that you were created. So therefore, we're recreating and giving birth to a new us, okay? A new us. And you notice the word that was used is the fluidity. When we think of the water again, water allows things to move. It's permeable. It's able to transcend and to go through and to move through the element, all the elements of life and the elements of the earth. And so it is through that we are able to break down the walls. See, when you think of when you're emotional, in a healthy emotional state, and you start to cry because you're feeling and you're connecting through the tears. And the tears, someone else might see you in tears and they start to cry and they're breaking down and they're expressing. See? So even that too, it's healthy to be in that place of feeling and connecting in that space. Okay? So I'm going to finish up here. Here says, a woman brings towards her the energies of Eve and Lilith. When she feels that she has opened the door for the light, which is Eve, and the dark, Lilith, rivers to become integrated within you, then you can begin your journey towards the fourth gate. The process of opening the fourth gate will provide all the necessary insights and challenges to create the right environment for an authentic opening. Once it is truly entered, your life will change. And as she brings towards her energies of the Eve and Lilith and begins to live in peace with them both, equally cherished and adored, she can begin to share her new wholeness with her partner. When a man enters this freshly healed gate, it can only happen when the woman totally and completely trusts in him on a primordial level, beyond words and thoughts. This is a great gift to the man, to be entrusted, to be allowed to enter this sacred space, appreciation, unconditional love, allowed into the womb through these portals of appreciation, unconditional love, gratitude, and trust. His consciousness enters pure space, and he feels the immense power of creation, as well as the power to create, coupled with enormous bliss. This has to be experienced to be believed beyond these words, and it is how sacred sexuality and union occurs between souls, not just body and mind. So, again, it's speaking on intimacy. This is the mandala of inner sacred union, the sacred marriage of the inner male and female aspects of oneself, the path, the rites of passage, the intimacy, within, when you feel into this energy and you feel into yourself and where it takes you. Greetings, Mary. No, it's you. And so even though there's 7 gates, I just kind of went through the four gates with you, okay? And what this means for you, what it means for your soul, because it's a soulful experience. And what happens when you're taking your partner to the 5th gate, where the soul that had been torn into pieces is now coming together. Because before what we did was that we what do you call it? We went into separate bodies to experience life and to gather up all the data. And so now that we've gathered up all this data, we are now applying everything and all the things that we have ever been, because you've been everything. And now we're coming back into that pure intimate space. And within that pure intimate space is what we're coming together. And this is from your soul. Your soul is up to something. Your soul is up to this right now in this space as you're hearing me, as you're feeling into this energy. And where you're taking yourself with love, where you're taking yourself with intimacy, where you're taking yourself with your body, mind, and soul. What we are recreating right now on the planet. And so we were cast into different directions. And we've been searching and searching for the other parts of ourselves, because almost everyone says, I've been searching for the one. I've been searching for the one. The one was always you. And I always said that God created this very cleverly to have had someone or something represent the one, or someone representing something that sparks you, or something that ignites you, or something that opens you up to love again. The key thing is, are you willing to work through your wounds? Are you willing to work through the truth of yourself, to what's really happening here, to get back to yourself, so that way you can now be in a greater harmonious space to love and intimacy? So I am going to leave you right here with this right now. It has been such a pleasure, really a pleasure to talk about this so much with you. If there's anyone of you out there that is desiring a session, I'm able to read energy and to see what is showing up. Some of you may be just starting out on this journey and not understanding it, but you're feeling it, because it's not about what you see in the physical space. It's also what's happening in the energy that is playing out between you and that person, and where the divine is taking you to come back to yourself, like a dangling carrot is what I call it. And I said, it's very clever, but we wouldn't have it any other way, because this was all planned. And the key and the great thing about this is that we will now be able to sustain this energy of love in its purest state, with no interruptions, and that's how I can best say it, with utmost love. So anyway, if you desire a session with me, please feel free to reach out to me. Either email thegardenofeden1111@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, thereturnofthegardenofeden.com, and we can set up a session. So I will leave you with a little bit of music before I end, because music always feels us connected, because even if you're making love and listening to music and laughing and dancing at the same time, it really does something wonderful for the soul. You know what I mean? And so I can only say again, to honor yourself, honor your journey, honor your path, honor your feelings, and with authenticity, being authentic, and see what there is for you to look at within yourself to heal. And how much more do you feel comfortable opening up to yourself, opening up to your life with your partner, or even someone that you're close to? Are you able to talk about these things openly, or are you still in fear? And if you feel that you are able to open up and don't feel, and you don't have to feel guilty or feel judged by it, then you know how much more closer you are into that space of intimacy within yourself. and the intimate moments that you have with Source, and the messages that come through, because it has never left. It has always been there with you. It's for you to claim it. It's for you to remember. It's for you to awaken. So I send you so much love and peace and infinite blessings. And I am in gratitude for all of these divine unions coming together within ourselves, and what it means for us, and what it well, it is a meal, so means for planet Earth and Mother Gaia, as she is celebrating in her glory, as she's giving birth to a new us in a different way. Peace and blessings to you. Namaste.